So I started looking for alternatives. I looked into Buddhism, I looked into monkhood when I was very young, and that played a recurring role in my life with varying degrees of seriousness as my life progressed. I was also looking into self-sustainable communities, getting off the grid, getting out of, just getting off the grid. I did not want to participate in society. I'm just not a fan at all. So I did though, I did participate. I thought, you know what, I don't have what it takes right now to go off and build my own self-sustainable community. I wasn't in the mindset to be a monk at that point in time. It was very interesting to me all throughout my life, but I didn't have the experience that I needed to make that decision with conviction, so I didn't do it. So I'm 32 now, and up until I was 28, I spent my life working in society, working towards, what most people would deem as, success. So I had all of the jobs, and I'm a very ambitious person. I have the ability to apply myself towards something and work very hard, understand what I need to do to be successful, and then be successful. So I was always very successful in everything that I wanted to be successful in. Sometimes I just didn't really care. But I was always able to get the promotion, always apply myself with the job that I was doing to become quite good and move up the workplace hierarchy, I suppose. But I'd get to the top and I'd find that, okay, well, this is unfulfilling, and what's next? What's next? What's next? What's next? It was a never-ending story, I suppose, and I found it to be quite exhausting. So what I was searching for was purpose, a meaning for my life, a reason to continue living, because from a very early age, I didn't really see many reasons to be alive. That was just my perspective, and I thought, okay, well, the most important reason to be alive would be maybe a purpose, to do something, like something that I'm good at, something that I can do very well, something that I can give to others. I always felt this sense of wanting to serve others in the most meaningful way that I could. So I worked in customer service, but I was working in society. I never really found a meaningful and satisfying way in which I could serve that was, completely satisfying, I suppose. So working in customer service, it wasn't it. And eventually, long story short, I ended up working in the solar energy industry, which I thought this was something that would be the most purposeful thing that I could do. So it's a multifaceted benefit working in solar. You can help people reduce their energy bills, you can help reduce the carbon emissions and get rid of the dirty energy companies. So it was a really feel-good thing, and I was really passionate about it, and I was very successful as well. So feeling such a sense of purpose and passion about what it was that I was doing, I was very quickly successful. I'm not a good salesperson, I was just really passionate about solar. If anyone wants to be good at sales, just an insider's trick, you just got to be really passionate about what you're selling. If people buy you, they don't buy the product, they buy you. So if you can get really enthusiastic, like people love that energy, and it doesn't matter if you're trying to sell them a flaming pile of garbage, they'd probably buy it. Get excited, yeah, that's all it is. So I did this quite successfully, and I was earning more money than I knew what to do with. I was earning a disposable income. I got to the point in my life where I had it all. I think I was 26, 27, around about that time in my life. And I got to the point where I found, the job of my dreams. I couldn't think of any other more meaningful job than that which I had at that point in time. I was like, yeah, amazing, solar. I had the girl of my dreams as well, the most beautiful girl. I was so in love with her. I had the car of my dreams as well. It was a turbocharged Subaru Forester. That thing went very quickly. Very satisfying. And I was earning a lot of money. I had so much money, I didn't know what to do with it. But interestingly, after having, I didn't have it on like a movie star kind of level, but I was living very, very well, very, very comfortably. The only thing I didn't have was a house, and I thought, I'm not getting myself involved in that kind of trap. There's no way. So I had all of these things that should indicate happiness and success within an individual once they've obtained them, right? This is society standard. The American dream. Have all of these things and you'll be happy. You know why they call it the American dream? It's because you've got to be asleep to believe it. So I had all of these things, and the emptiness within me was larger than it had ever been. There was still something missing, and I was like, I thought I should be satisfied. I thought I should be fulfilled. Like, I've got all of the things, right? Like, where's the happiness? Like, it didn't come. And the this was a brutal realization, you know, after having all of these things, after having worked so hard for this success in my life, it was meaningless to me. I got to this point where I was earning, you know, big paychecks. And I was like, okay, well, that doesn't make me feel good. Because now I need more. Like, when does it stop? I started to realize that, you know, my favorite number was more. There was nothing that was ever enough. My thirst for materials, my thirst for money was insatiable. So I thought, oh, goodness me, this is a very sticky web. This is a very deep ocean here that I've just fallen into. And I don't want to keep swimming here right now. I've realized just how messed up this situation is. Very, very quickly, the fact that I was just going to be chasing my tail, chasing money, you know, chasing all of these things that brought absolutely no substance into my life. So I started having these realizations very quickly that after having it all to a relative degree, that it wasn't what I was looking for. And that's when everything in my life started falling apart. I lost my mojo in solar. I just couldn't do it anymore. I thought, what am I working towards? Like, it's all meaningless. Like, I've got all of these things. I'm living very well, but like that ache within me, that pain within me, it persists. That depression, that existential angst, it's still there. This doesn't help me to answer the question, like, what are we doing here? What's the point of all of this? What happens when we die? I realized that what I was working towards was just completely inconsequential. Well, not inconsequential, it was valuable working in solar, but like ultimately on a spiritual kind of level, it was not satisfying. And I thought, oh my God. I started to feel like an absolute fraud in doing what I was doing. I felt like I was completely betraying myself because I was working against what my ultimate priority was, which was to understand the nature of reality. And at that point in time, I just completely lost it. I started going into work, and I was having panic attacks when I was at my consultations because I was selling solar, and I used to do it just so effortlessly. It was so effortless, and then things changed so quickly. I started going to my consultations, and I just couldn't talk. It felt like someone was strangling me. It felt like there was a weight on my chest. It was just this anxiety. It was like I was struggling to breathe. I was literally going to my consultations, and I couldn't breathe. I just couldn't breathe. It was horrifying. It just got to the point where everything fell apart. My job fell apart, my car fell apart, my relationship fell apart, everything fell apart. And it was a good thing. It needed to happen. And I thought, okay, well, life is meaningless, you know. I need something to change very quickly. I've investigated society, I've investigated capitalistic consumerism thoroughly, and I've recognized that I'm not interested. I'm not willing to participate in this system anymore. I can't do it. I refuse. And still to this day, I refuse to participate, just not interested at all. So I thought to myself, where does that leave me? You know, I've decided that I'm not doing this again. I'm not willing at all. You can't make me. I refuse. So where does that leave me? Do I commit suicide? It's something that I've been toying with for a very, very long time, and I very seriously contemplated. I was very, very deep in the suicidal ideation mentality. But I thought, you know what? I don't want to throw in the towel. I don't want to give up. I don't want to commit suicide. I couldn't do it. So I thought, I felt a sense of purpose within me. I felt this drive to continue. And I thought, I need to investigate this, you know. I know that there's something there. And if I leave any stones unturned, then I'm going to die with regrets. And I can't do that. So I felt compelled by this sense of purpose. So I decided to go for a trip over to Nepal to practice some Vipassana meditation. I'd heard a lot about meditation throughout my life, but I was extremely ADHD, absolute maniac of a person. So I couldn't sit still for more than 5 minutes. I just couldn't do it. So I thought, I need to be in the right setting. And if I take myself out of society and put myself into this tranquil, you know, place in Nepal, in the Himalayas, where it's like a really spiritual environment, and I just go for 10 days, get rid of my phone, there's no distractions. Okay, I can do that. Okay, sure. I've got nothing else to worry about, nothing else to think about. I can completely commit to the practice. So I did. I thought I need to fully go for it. I need to remove all of the distractions to give myself the best chance to experience something that can potentially help me. So I went over to Nepal, and it was the Goenka. If anyone has heard about Goenka, he's a very famous Vipassana teacher. He structured these 10-day Vipassana meditation courses. So it's 10 days, 10 hours a day of meditation. So it's hardcore, it's full on. So I went there with no expectations. I didn't know what to expect. How could I have any expectations? I had no idea. Complete noob, complete beginner. But I had a willingness to learn. I had a willingness to apply myself. And ultimately, this is what makes the difference as to whether or not you'll be successful in what it is that you're doing. Are you willing to apply yourself, or do you not really care too much about what you're doing? If there's an element of, I don't really care about this, then that is going to be your Achilles heel. So I think it's important in life to make sure that what you're doing, you do care about. Otherwise, it just becomes meaningless and pointless, and you just start drifting through life, and it's like, well, whatever, kind of thing. So for me, I've developed a really intentional and purpose-driven lifestyle, and for me, I couldn't imagine living in any other way. It's just totally meaningless. So the teaching, Goenka, very, very powerful teacher. His teaching is it's choreographed to help us to experience anicca, impermanence, directly for ourselves, to actually have a full experience-based understanding of impermanence rather than a conceptual understanding. So intellectual understanding is not true understanding. There is no substitute for experience-based understanding, once again, in degrees of bandwidth or dimensions. An intellectual understanding is very one-dimensional, but an experience-based understanding is multidimensional. And once again, this is what the Buddha was pointing towards, which Goenka and myself are echoing quite confidently. Ehipasiko, come and see for yourself. The Buddha was talking about all of these wonderful things. Nirvana, the liberation from suffering, the ultimate happiness. But he said, no, you must come and see for yourself, because my understanding of it, conveyed to you through the intellect, it doesn't help you in any way. You know, it's not the full understanding. You need to take the steps. You need to experience, and only then will you understand. So the Buddha's pointing towards the moon. We don't want to mistake the Buddha's finger for the moon. You know, we actually, there's a saying, don't mistake the Buddha's finger for the moon. Everyone gets so caught up in just, the teaching, you're amazing, missing the point completely. To fully perceive the moon, we must take the steps for ourselves, and to truly understand what the Buddha is pointing towards. It's imperative that you put your best foot forward rather and investigate for yourself. Otherwise, you become a religious fanatic, I suppose, and that can be quite dangerous. So we want to be practitioners. Very important to become practitioners rather than an intellectual arahant. That doesn't serve you in any way, shape, or form other than to embellish the ego, to know everything on the intellectual level. So it's all about practicing and gaining that the felt presence of your own direct experience to know for yourself. So Goenka, marvelous the way in which he structured these meditation retreats. So powerful. And the 10 days of intensive meditation, it's concentrated meditation. So it's going to give you the best, if you fully apply yourself, and it's difficult to want to do so because it's painful. Very, very difficult. But if you are able to fully apply yourself for the 10 days, meditating for 10 hours a day, like, the sky is the limit, you know. Even further than that, it can truly blow your mind if you give yourself a really good chance. It did for me. So I came to this retreat. I guess I didn't necessarily have expectations, but I was looking for a reason to continue to live, and I was willing to just objectively and thoroughly investigate this method to see if anything could happen. But I wasn't attached to any expectations. I didn't have any expectations at all of what it would be or it could be or it should be. I'm just going to go for it. Do my best, see what happens. So the teaching, Goenka teaches, so vipassana, the word vipassana, it literally translates to see something in a special way. To see something in a special way. So it's pertaining to insight and wisdom. So Goenka says that in this particular method, what we want to do is to focus on the sensations of the body. So it's body scanning. Anyone who's practiced before vipassana will know this. So we start on just this point here, just underneath the nostril. You just want to localize your attention to this one point. Just calm the mind down, single-pointed concentration to start with, just to slow the mind down a little bit, and to start just paying attention to the sensations you can feel here. So for the most part, you can just feel the sensation of the breath. As you inhale and exhale, you feel the sensation there. And then gradually over time, over the course of the meditation retreat, you start to expand your awareness. You start to expand your area of investigation, I suppose. So it starts at just this small area here, then the face, then the head, and then ultimately you'll be scanning through the entire body. Now the idea is to systematically scan through the body, slowly, just gently, taking your time, just taking note of the sensations, objectively, without reaction, without saying this is good, this is bad, I like this, I don't like this, I hate this, I love this. We just want to be neutral and say, okay, excuse me. You feel a sensation, like an itching sensation in the leg. Now, usually the tendency is to say, oh, I don't like that, oh, I don't want that to be there, oh, I'm just going to scratch it. But what we want to train ourselves to do in this particular method is to observe that sensation objectively without reacting to it. And just say, okay, there is an itch. And then we continue, scanning the body objectively, systematically, just being as objective and neutral to any sensations that you can experience. The pain, the pleasure, whatever it is, we just don't want to react. We're training ourselves in this art, and it is an art of non-reaction. So Goenka says that if you can observe pain in the body for long enough, neutrally, objectively, without reaction, it will change by itself. It will resolve itself. You don't need to resist it. You don't need to adjust. You don't need to do anything. You just need to be neutral. It's the neutrality which is the key. It's the neutrality which holds the key to our healing, to our ability to deal with these circumstances as they arise and to find the resolution. But when we react, we keep things stuck. That's when we become stagnant. We keep the energy trapped because we've reacted, we've created attachment. Now, attachment you could either define as craving, I want what I don't have, or aversion, I don't want what I do have. Either way, we have an attachment in our mind towards particular sensations, and that is where we get stuck in our lives. So the attachment is the problem. Once again, investigate very well, and you'll see this for yourselves. So Goenka says, whatever the pain is, I don't think he says this particularly, but you can take it as such. Whatever the pain is, if it's physical, emotional, spiritual, mental, whatever it is, wherever it's coming from, the solution is the same. Just be neutral and it will pass. It may take a day, it may take a week, it may take a month, but if you can cultivate, it's like walking a tightrope. Very, very difficult to maintain your balance on this tightrope, of course, but if you can maintain your balance, then there's nothing that you cannot deal with. There is nothing that you cannot resolve. There is nothing that is unbearable. You can be on top of everything. It's almost miraculous, I suppose, what we can deal with when we truly put our minds to it. But we've got to train the mind very well, because the undisciplined mind, caught up in reaction, suffering comes very, very quickly, very, very easily. So we've got to guard. We've got to be on guard. So I was like, okay, amazing. He says, he even goes as far as to say that he actually says this, to observe the sensation neutrally for long enough, if you observe the pain neutrally for long enough, it will turn into a pleasant sensation. And for me, I did not understand that. I was like, oh, that doesn't make any sense. Like how? No, I was like, whatever. Okay, sure. I'll just practice. Let's see how we go. So I sat down and started practicing, and it was all rainbows and butterflies for the first 5 days. I was like, oh yeah, I'm really good at meditation. Amazing. And then on day 5, I think, or day 6, this is when the suffering started to come. So it caught me off guard. The pain really caught me off guard when it came along. I was not expecting it at all to come in my shoulder, and it did. So I was sitting here in meditation just like this, just practicing the body scanning, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, there's pain in my shoulder. And I'm like, that's very strange. Like, why is there pain there? Where is that coming from? That doesn't make any sense. I'm not doing anything. I'm just sitting here very still. So it started to plague my mind, and I realized my mind started to react. And I was like, oh, Goenka says, you know, we're supposed to just keep body scanning. Don't get caught up in trying to investigate intellectually. And I was like, okay, I'll get back to the body scanning. But the pain over the next couple of days, it really started to challenge me, really started to test my concentration. It started to amplify. The more subtle and still that my mind became as a result of practicing in the way that was taught by Goenka, the more pronounced and proliferated the pain became, to the point where it started to really get the better of me. It started to make me panic and think, am I about to die? Like, what? It started to get that intense that I started to ask that question. It was extremely painful. It was extremely acute. It was like my whole body was on fire. It started in the shoulder, and then it started to spread systematically all throughout my body. It just felt like I was on fire. It felt like I was getting stabbed, and it felt like, you know, there was an axe just like splitting me in the head. It was just tremendous pain, more pain than I've experienced in my entire life. But all I knew was just to keep practicing. All I was going to do was just to keep practicing, because at that point in my life, you know, I'd kind of accepted death. I was like, you know what, I don't really care so much anymore. Like, if I die, I don't want to do it myself, but if I get hit by a bus, then I won't be too sad about it. Or if I die in meditation, I won't be too, whatever. Like, I don't care anymore. I had no attachment to my life whatsoever. So it kind of worried me, because I didn't expect to come face to face with death so quickly, especially in like a situation like this. I was like, oh, I don't know if I'm ready for this. But I was like, you know what, okay, I'm just going to keep practicing. I've got nothing to lose. There's nothing to live for. Whatever. I'm just going to go for it. I don't care. Pain, whatever. I'm just going to go for it. So I just gritted my teeth, and I thought, I'm just going to deal with it. Like, I just do not care anymore. So that kind of mentality, that kind of reckless abandon, it sucks that that situation was there in the first place, but it was very helpful. It was like the perfect storm, the perfect combination of ingredients that allowed me to be very successful in that meditation. So nothing to lose. So I just kept going. I just kept practicing. As difficult as it was, I just kept reinforcing my attention upon the body scanning. And it got to the point where I recognized that despite the intensity of the pain, I was able to deal with it. I was managing. It wasn't unbearable. I didn't know how how much I was able to deal with until I was tested in this way. Usually when something challenging comes along, we want to run away from it straight away and say, oh no, like, oh, I don't want this. I'm going to find a coping mechanism. I want to get away from this pain. But in the Goenka style of meditation, and in meditation in general, we're encouraged to just be objective, to observe this pain neutrally. And, you know, I was surprised. I was like, you know what? This is excruciatingly painful, but it's okay. I can deal with it. It's not the end of the world. Here I am. I'm cultivating this balance. It felt like I was walking on a tightrope. I realized that every time I got distracted and that the mind wandered away, that's when the pain just started to explode a little bit. But when I brought the mind back to stillness, I was like, okay, I've got it in control. I'm on top of it. Okay, let's keep going. I could still feel all the pain, of course, but I wasn't reacting to it anymore. And in not reacting to the pain, I was able to manage the pain. I was able to deal with the pain. But it was a very, very delicate balance. Very, very delicate balance. It requires a great deal of attention to be able to manage the intensity of a situation like this. To start with, of course, but when you train yourself very well, it becomes second nature to be able to deal with pain when it arises, to be able to deal with discomfort or that which is not preferable when it arises. It's a practice, it's a training. And you become spiritually stronger the more you practice your neutrality, the more you practice your objectivity. No matter how persistent or resilient or relentless the sensations are, mind, body, soul, whatever it is, if you can continue being objective towards the pain and letting it go, and just bringing your attention back to your meditation object, there's nothing that you can't deal with. There's nothing that you can't work through. There's nothing that you can't resolve. Or should I say there's nothing that can't resolve itself? Because I didn't do anything other than this. And then something truly miraculous happened, which was just, it blew my mind. So it was on, I think, day 7. I'd been sitting with this pain for a couple of days now. And, you know, I thought I was going through the motions. Oh, I'm going to die. Like, I'm not going to get to say goodbye to my family. Oh well, too bad. And then just focusing on Goenka's teaching, just going for it. I thought to myself, I'm going to get through this. It's only 10 days. It's only 10 days. As soon as we finished, I'm going to have a coffee and a pizza and it's going to be all good. So I had my coping mechanisms. Healthy kind of coping mechanisms, you know. So I got to like day 7 and the pain was at the absolute peak. And I was getting exhausted, you know, because being that neutral towards that pain, which is just like coming at you, it's exhausting. It takes a lot of energy. So I was starting to run out of steam a little bit. But I just kept trying. I just kept trying and just kept trying, kept applying myself. No matter how tired I was, I had nothing left to lose. So I thought, I'm just going to give it my everything. If I die in this process, I die. I'm just going to give it everything. So I got to the point where something quite extraordinary happened. I was just being as neutral as I possibly could. And then the nucleus of the pain, which was in the shoulder, it was right here. All of a sudden, it felt like there was a sphere, like a circle, around this area of my shoulder. And within that sphere, the energy, even outside of my body, I could feel this. It was interesting. It was not necessarily connected to me, but I could feel what was happening in this region as well. So the area started to become very high vibrational. It felt like it was quite electric in this area. Everything was buzzing. It felt, it was quite an intense vibration. And then, has anyone ever seen the movie The Avengers, where Thanos does the snap? And then Peter Parker's like, oh, Mr. Stark, I don't feel so good. And then he just explodes, disintegrates, just turns to dust. So the next thing that happened was nothing short of miraculous. And no word of a lie, what I'm about to tell you is, you know, the felt presence of my own direct experience. I'll explain it in the best way that I can. What happened next is that it felt like my shoulder had just been struck by a bolt of lightning, just out of nowhere. And that it was this gross, throbbing, painful, overwhelming, debilitating sensation that was just, you know, hammering on my mind. And in a single instant, it was completely obliterated. It was just like explosive force. And that single throbbing, gross sensation, it fragmented, it shattered into what felt like 1 billion or 1 trillion little fragments. And it was all throughout my body at the time. The pain was all throughout my body. So it just shattered. And then in a single instant, it went from the most excruciating pain that I'd ever felt in my entire life to pleasant sensations, just like Goenka talked about. And I was like, what the hell was that? And then this pain, it just shattered completely. And then all of the little fragments I could feel through my body, they started to come up through my chest and down my arm and out my fingers. Felt like little butterflies just flittering around. It was quite blissful. And all of those little fluttery sensations came out through my arm, out my fingers, and then completely gone. And that pain was completely resolved. So this pain, it was quite a problem for me while I was practicing meditation because I didn't realize where it was coming from. something that kind of helped me to come to terms with it a little bit was some insight arose, which showed me beyond any doubt where the pain was originating from. It showed me that it was an injury from the past when I was playing cricket with one of my best friends at my local cricket club. We were batting and bowling, and we were a lot younger, and things got out of hand, and it degenerated rather into a wrestling match. And as things generally do between young testosterone-fueled males, it got out of hand very, very quickly. And he picked me up and threw me on my shoulder, and it crushed my shoulder. And my shoulder was never the same after that. It wasn't the worst injury in the world. It was maybe about 85%, so not the worst thing, but it wasn't 100%. And I realized, oh, okay, so that's where the pain is coming from. Usually I'll tell that bit of the story before I get to the climax of the situation, but instantaneously, that sensation, just as Goenka was teaching, if you observe the pain neutrally for long enough, it will change all by itself. And it did. I didn't do anything special at all. It just happened. And it was in that moment that I decided to become a monk. In that moment, I found purpose. In that moment, that was the most meaningful and extraordinary experience that I'd ever had in my entire life, and I was compelled to investigate further. It just completely blew my mind. Beyond scientific rationalism. There's no way in which I could have ever been prepared for an experience like that to happen. And this didn't happen once, this has actually happened twice. And not just for me as well, there are millions of other people who've practiced Vipassana who would have similar experiences to tell. We've had a couple of people who've come here who've told of very similar experiences that they've had in the depths of Vipassana practice, where they've had this extraordinary, profound, transformative experience which has allowed them to experience a sense of purpose or something very meaningful in their lives. So for me, in that single instant, I experienced spontaneous healing of an injury which wasn't really too much of a problem for me, but it became quite apparent as to the fact that there was an injury there. Spontaneous healing, and in that moment, my purpose found me. I created the space, opened up the bandwidth of my connection to that which was greater than myself through cultivating the stillness of the mind. And then all of a sudden, powerful meaning, powerful purpose had arisen in my life, and I thought, that is extraordinary. I need to know more about that. I'm going to become a monk. I need to dedicate my life to this so that I can investigate this further. I mean, crazy stuff. So didn't happen once, but it happened twice, and I'll tell you about the second time as well. So this is when it becomes kind of quantifiable. The first time something like this happens, you might think, oh, it's a miracle, but it's actually more scientific than we might recognize. But it's just very, very difficult because it exists in the stillness, in the deep stillness of the mind, it can be quite challenging to get down to that depth. Extremely challenging, actually, to get down to that depth. You're going to be challenged on every single level. So during that meditation experience, I busted both of my knees. I blew both my knees out, just trying to be too neutral. I had that experience of the transformation of pain, just immediate transformation of pain. And I thought, okay, there's nothing that I can't deal with anymore. The pain in the knees, no problem. The lightning bolt's going to come any moment and heal the pain. Right? Right? Come on. I'm being neutral. It didn't come. So I was sitting there trying to be neutral to this pain, and I was neutral to this pain. I thought, yeah, any moment that the free lightning bolt healing is going to come along again. It's going to be great. But it didn't happen. So I just went really, really hard, and I blew both of my knees out. I busted both of my knees really hard. There's nothing that's permanent, of course, but I suffered a permanent injury. I couldn't walk properly for a couple of months afterwards. The left knee was worse than the right knee, and I could not sit cross-legged. Any tension on the knee joint would result in excruciating, like head-splitting pain. It was busted. So at that point, I decided to become a monk. There were very many reasons influencing this decision, but it was about a year and a half, maybe a year and a half before I actually came to Thailand to ordain as a monk. So I was dealing with this injury for a while, and it was quite debilitating. So it got to the point where I decided to become a monk. I'd gotten the flight, come overseas to Thailand. I'd signed up for an ordination program, and I thought, okay, I need to heal this knee. I need to work on this knee. I'm not going to be able to be a good monk if I can't meditate very well. So I need to fix this. So I came over to Thailand, and I went up to Wat Pa Pae. I'm not sure if anyone might have been there before. It's in Mae Hong Son, just past Pai. I was going to practice some more meditation to see if I could help myself. So I came to the meditation hall, and on the first night, sat down in the chair, and I had my intention set. I think setting intentions can be very powerful. If you set a strong intention, you know the reason why you're doing something, then your wisdom, your intuition can come along to support you, to help you to manifest your intentions. So I had a strong intention, and I thought, all right, need to heal the knee. What can I do? So I sat down, started practicing meditation, and then the voice of my intuition, which I've come to be able to recognize quite easily, it said, okay, now put your foot up on your knee like this. So I did that and engaged the pain in my knee. And I thought to myself, okay, that's very painful. And my intuition says, yes, okay, that's right. You want to engage the pain, accept the pain, embrace the pain, acknowledge the pain. I was like, okay, pain, I get it, sure. Then my intuition told me to start breathing very, very slowly. Now, this wasn't coming from me. This guidance wasn't coming from my mind or my intellect or my ego. I am not smart enough for this. If I was smart enough, I would have resolved it by now. I had no idea. So this deeper wisdom, it's all about depth, I suppose. The wisdom, the intuition is far deeper than the intellect. So I sat in this position. My intuition said, okay, now just slow your breath down. So I took this as seriously as I could and slowed my breath down as much as I possibly could. I was taking about 1 breath a minute, inhaling 15 seconds, holding for 30 seconds, and then exhaling for 30 seconds. So to some degree, you could call this pranayama. It's not maybe official pranayama, but it's, breath work, I suppose. So I was doing this for a little while, just slowing my breath right down, expanding my diaphragm. There's energy in the air. Without oxygen, we die. Of course, we know this, but I don't think that we make the most of the energy which is available to us in the air. And practicing pranayama can help us to recognize this. So I was breathing very slowly and then just absorbing all of that energy, holding the oxygen, and then just slowly letting it go. And very quickly, I started to experience the same sensations that I felt in Nepal, but just in my leg and mainly in the knee. Everything started becoming very high vibrational. It felt very electrical once again. I was like, I've felt this sensation before. So I just kept doing that, and then once again, I don't think I felt the sphere this time. It was just direct, like lightning bolt. Is the best way that I can explain it. It was explosive, it was quick, it was miraculous, it was out of nowhere. It just bang like that. And then that extreme pain, that excruciating pain, which I was just, balancing on a tightrope, I suppose you could say. It just completely disintegrated. And the pain was like all throughout this leg. So the little sensations, once again, it was exactly the same, like billions of little butterflies just flittering out my leg, out my foot, or down my leg rather, out my foot and out my toes, and then gone. I jumped down onto the floor straight away because I knew what had happened, and I sat in a cross-legged position, and there was no pain. Completely resolved in the blink of an eye, just like that, in the stillness of the mind. The lightning bolt, the free miraculous lightning bolt healing had come along to resolve an unresolved trauma of mine that I'd been suffering with for the last year and a half or so. So this is an example on the physical level how healing can be possible in meditation. Now, I believe that this is a quantifiable kind of thing. I don't believe that I'm special. I believe that anyone who practices in this way can experience the miraculous, keeping in mind once again that human beings are only in tune with 0.0000001% of the entire electromagnetic spectrum. So most of what's going on we have absolutely no idea about. So we don't know what the possibilities are. Here's what we know. Here's what we don't know, and then here's what we don't know that we don't know, and even further. I wish my arms were a lot longer than this. But in meditation, we can start to open ourselves up, as I've mentioned a couple of times, to that which is greater than our idea of ourselves. We can start to experience the true multidimensionality, or get a glimpse of the multidimensionality of the experience that we're having at the moment. So it's an infinite thing, totally infinite thing. The possibilities we have absolutely no idea about. So in that moment, in those two experiences that I've just outlined, I found spiritual healing. I found meaning in my life. I found purpose in my life. I found the answer. I felt like I'd understood what I wanted to do, what I needed to do, what was going to be most meaningful and satisfying and rewarding for me to do, what I could apply myself towards confidently and comfortably. So the purpose, it came to me in practicing meditation, and I feel like, once again, this can be a quantifiable thing. If you practice meditation, it's all a subjective and very spiritual process, but I feel like the method can help us to reveal, or it can allow, rather, practicing this particular method can allow purpose to reveal itself in the right time, in the right moment. Now, everybody's path may look a little bit different in that respect, but I feel like it can provide exactly this kind of value. So for me, my purpose was revealed in this way and happened in this way for me, and I know the reasons why. It's because I'd investigated my reality extremely thoroughly to try and find my purpose all throughout my life. So that's what I was oriented towards from the onset, finding meaning, finding value. I knew what I wanted in my life. So in practicing meditation, I knew the direction that I wanted to head. So I feel like meditation can most effectively help us when we know a little bit about ourselves, when we know kind of, where we want to go, what we want to put our energy towards, what our strengths are, what our weaknesses are. The more we know ourselves, the more effectively meditation can help us. The stronger our intentions, I suppose. If we're able to reinforce intentions, then I feel like the support from meditation can find us most easily. So it's a beautiful process of self-discovery, and the more we practice meditation, the more we'll know about ourselves, and the more effectively meditation can help us. So it can be quite an extraordinary process. So I found the healing on a spiritual level, that which I'd been looking for my entire life, meaning. I found it, couldn't believe it. I'd found spontaneous healing as well, couldn't believe that either. But there were still many things that were left unresolved in my life, and I want to talk about the mental and emotional side of things as well. The mental and emotional aspects, the unresolved traumas, also things that I feel as though meditation can help us to find the resolutions for, that which we've been lacking for our entire lives. So I'm just going to use one example of an unresolved trauma that I experienced throughout my life, but my perspective on this is that it's all the same. You know, your unresolved traumas may come in many different shapes and sizes. They may look very different, but we don't want to compare. We don't want to get caught up in comparison. It's all the same. The suffering as a result of the unresolved trauma that we feel, irrespective of what the experience actually was, it's the same. So I want to talk about the unresolved trauma of my relationship with my dad. I was born in the 1990s and my dad was born in the 1940s. Huge generational gap, huge disconnect. I was a very sensitive boy, very emotional boy. And my dad was a very tough, masculine man. Toughest man I'd ever known, you know. Didn't display any emotions, he was just tough. And as a little child, I needed my dad to be there for me emotionally. The strength of meditation, it can seriously be the ship that can help us to get safely to the other shore, irrespective of how rough the seas become. And I have absolute faith and confidence in that. I feel like there's nobody, there's nothing that arises in our lives that meditation cannot help us to deal with. Nothing that meditation cannot help us to resolve or find the answers for, or to find closure or some sort of relief. You know, it may take some time, of course, to practice to strengthen the muscle, but meditation will come through, I'm certain. I'm not special, you know, if it works for one of us, it can work for all of us. I'm absolutely certain about that. So meditation has helped me to find solutions in my life in ways in which I never thought I would find the solutions, to the problems rather that I never thought that I'd find the solutions for, like, you know, physical pain, you know, the meaninglessness of life, mental and emotional trauma, unresolved traumas, all of these things, the burdens that I thought that I'd be stuck with for the rest of my life. Meditation has helped me to find healing in every aspect of my life, to the point where I now exist in a space of unprecedented wellness, you know, sustainable well-being, sustainable contentment, peace, tranquility, happiness has become just a regular feature of my life. Through training my mind very well to be very still, there's nothing that I can't deal with. There's nothing that really bothers me anymore. I don't react. It's the non-reaction. When I react, I realize that when I react to things, that's when I cause problems for myself. When I get caught up in saying, oh, but things should have been this way, things should have been that way, why did things go this way, why did things go that way, that's the problem. It's the attachment which is the problem. When I'm sitting back here just being quite objective and neutral in my life, I'm still experiencing a very full and rich and meaningful existence, but from a very detached kind of perspective. None of the external factors of my life have power over me anymore to influence, to take my peace away from me. For me, what's most important is the peace of mind, is happiness, is contentment. And I realized that I was allowing the external factors of my life to take that away from me, to disrupt that from me, because I was so invested in things being in the way in which I wanted them to be. But I've realized that as a result of taking more of an objective and a neutral perspective, you know, not being so worried about the way in which things go, not taking things so seriously, not being so caught up in my own ego, my own preferences, just allowing nature to just flow as it wants to flow and learning how to be an objective observer, I am infinitely more happier. It's the greatest gift that I've ever given myself. It's the greatest service that I've ever done for myself in training myself to be very neutral and trusting the fact that the solutions come. You don't need to fight for the solutions. You don't need to work hard for the solutions. It just comes in the right moment, in the right time, when you've prepared yourself well, when the soil is fertile, the right wisdom will arise at the right time. And this is something that the Buddha repeated 12 times in the Dhammachakra, which is the most important chant in Buddhism. So if there's anything that we can take from any credit that we can give to the Buddha, we should give the Buddha this kind of credit. That, you know, the right wisdom will come at the right time. Have a bit of faith in the process. Let go of the outcome. Manage that balance of discipline and surrender, and success will be yours. It's just a matter of time. If you can be patient and persistent, then you will find the solution to any of your problems. Anything in your life which is concerning or worrying or taking all of your time and all of your energy, just create some space. Allow the magic of meditation to work its wonders for you. Know that there is a powerful supportive presence that is working, that can work for you if you allow it to, if you don't get in your own way. Give this thing a chance. You know, if you're sick of getting what you've always gotten, you know, if you do what you've always done, you'll get what you've always gotten. And if you're sick of getting what you've always gotten, then give it a chance. Do your due diligence, because, you know, as I've echoed a number of times throughout our discourse this morning, it's a patience game. It really is a patience game. If you can be patient and persistent, then there's nothing that you can't do. The success will be yours. That's the only outcome. For those who can be patient and persistent and disciplined and diligent in their meditation, then that is the only outcome. So give yourself some time and allow it to work for you. And I'm sure that you'll all be quite surprised as to just how extraordinary meditation can be in the value that it can provide in our lives. So, all right, we'll finish up here. It's almost 2.5 hours, so it's a long time. We have the Q&A this afternoon. It's up to you if you want to come. If you don't want to, that's fine. You don't have to come if you don't want to. But I feel like there's a lot of value that can come. A lot of people will have a lot of interesting questions, and you don't know the ways in which that some of these questions might be, and some of the answers might be quite insightful. So after this kind of discourse, there's always a lot of stones that are left unturned, a lot of things that are left unsaid. It's difficult to cover everything in 2.5 hours, so I've tried to give it, you know, a concentrated kind of session. So, but yeah, if there's anything that's on your minds, anything that you'd like to discuss or talk about, please feel free. We've got another 2-hour session in this afternoon. So we'll finish up now just by bowing 3 times, and then we'll pay respect to the Buddha and go and enjoy some lunch.